Alright guys, so this is a review for test 1. I only have about 15 minutes before the bell rings, so that's all I'm going to be able to make this. I'm going to do as much as I can, but I'm just kind of touching on things that I feel like you need help with, okay? So the first concept is finding domain. Okay, so a lot of people struggle with this, but it's just really so simple, guys. Look, all you have to do is memorize these three things. So one thing is if you have a fraction, the bottom of the fraction cannot be 0. Here's an example. If you have y equals 3x over x plus 1. X plus 1 can't be 0, so x can't be -1. Done. If they don't tell you how to write it however you want. The second thing is an even root. If you have an even root on the top, the inside must be greater than or equal to 0. Here's an example. Y equals the square root of 2x minus 1. You have a square root, it's on the top. You take the inside, it must be greater than or equal to 0. So 2x must be greater than or equal to 1, x must be greater than or equal to 1/2, done. The other thing is, if you have an even root on the bottom, you guys, you can't have a 0 on the bottom. So it's still greater than or equal to, only you have to drop the equal sign, because you can't have a 0 on the bottom. So it's simple, you just say the inside must be greater than 0. For example, if I have y equals 7x over 2x plus 5. Even root on the bottom, inside must be greater than 0. Pull the 5 over, 2x is greater than 5, divide, x is greater than 5/2, okay? I know you can understand that. So this basically must completely be memorized, okay? So make 3x5 cards, keep looking at it every day, do whatever you need to do. That is what you need to have memorized. If you haven't memorized, you'll totally get it right, okay? Okay, the next thing, absolute value inequalities. Again, memorization, okay? I'm going to list the steps, and then we're going to do a problem, and we're going to follow the steps. If you don't have the steps memorized, you're not going to get the problem right, okay? Step 1, isolate the absolute value. Simple. That means get it along, okay? Step number 2, make it an equal sign, but I want you to write, don't drop the absolute value symbol. It's still there. Now you split it into 2, you solve it, you go to a number line and you graph it, you look at step number 1, the result of step 1, and then you shade according to that result. If it's less than equal to or less than, you shade the inside. If it's greater than or equal to or greater than, you shade the outside. And then the last step is to write your answer. Okay? So I'm going to do a complicated one, and I'm going to have the steps right beside me. Okay? Here's an example. This will probably be on every quiz and test you take in this class. -2 minus absolute value 4x plus 1 is greater than a -3. Okay, let's say greater than, equal to, whatever. In your brain, remember I told you, I want you to see this like a y. You don't mess with that. It just is going to stay the way it is. So I want you to see in your brain, -2 minus y is greater than or equal to -3. Okay, so what's your first step? A lot of people were saying divide by -2. You guys, that -2 is not multiplied by the y. You can see right here. It's subtracted. So you pull it over and it becomes a positive. So it looks like this. A -3 and a +2 is a -1. Now, it's not alone. Some people were moving right into step 2. That's not alone because of that negative. So you have the absolute value of 4x plus 1 is less than or equal to +1. That's step 1. By the way, this is where you're going to look to decide if you shade inside outside, down on step number 6. The next step is to write your absolute value exactly the way it is, but now make it an equal sign. Okay, that's step 2. Step 3, split it in 2. 4x plus 1 equals 1, or 4x plus 1 equals -1. Move the 1 over. 4x equals 0. Divide by 4, x equals 0. This guy, 4x equals -2. Divide by 4, x equals -1/2. That's step number 4. So I split it and then I solved it. Step number 5, go to a number line. Right here, -1/2, 0. I do have an equal sign, so my circles are closed. This is where I look. If I look at the beginning, I'm going to shade the outside. That's wrong, because I had to reverse it when I got my inequality line. So this is a less than, which tells me inside. Now I just write my answer. So the answer is -1/2 with a bracket to 0 with a bracket, and I'm done. That's interval form. If you had to write it in set builder notation, you would go brace x such that in between a -1/2 and a 0, you go -1/2 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 0, and that's it. Okay? Again, I know you can do the math. It's memorizing these steps. So you have to get those memorized, period. Okay? Okay, some of you are struggling with fractions. So the first thing I want to talk about is multiplying fractions. Very straightforward. Look, if you have a over b multiplied by c over d, you go straight across. So a times c is ac, b times d is bd. You do not cross multiply. You guys, the only time you cross multiply is if there's an equal sign in between. That would be a times d equals b times c. Okay, so back over here to multiplying fractions, let's do a really simple one. If you had something like 2 over 3 multiplied by 5 over 4, okay, you could do it in a couple of ways. First of all, 2 times 5 is 10, 3 times 4 is 12, reduce it, 5 over 6. That's all you do. The 2 gets multiplied by the 5, tops together, bottoms together. That's great. I don't do that because you can cross cancel. Do you see the 2 and the 4? 2 goes into both of them. 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 4 2 times. Then I go 5 times 1 is 5, 3 times 2 is 6. I get the same thing. Okay? Now let's bring in some variables with that. So let's say you had x minus 1 over 2x multiplied by x plus 5 over x plus 1. Here's the problem. If I multiply these straight across and I get x to the second plus 4x minus 5 over, distribute the 2x, 2x to the second minus 2x, and I say, yay, that's my answer, it's actually not. That's why I think canceling the way I did, the way I prefer right here, is better because look, see this x minus 1 on the top and the x minus 1 on the bottom? Those cancel. They both technically become 1s. So then 1 times x minus x plus 5 is x plus 5. 2x times 1 is 2x. That's your answer. This is correct, but it's not simplified, so you're not going to get credit. Okay? All right, let's talk about adding fractions. Okay, so if you're adding fractions, you have to get a common denominator. So for example, 2 over 3 added to 1 over 5. Common denominator, you pull those together. 5 times 3 is 15. This one's got the 3, it's missing the 5. 3 times 5 is 15, so 2 times 5 is 10. This guy, 5 times 3 is 15. So 1 times 3 is 3. Add those together, you get 13 over 15. Okay? Let's add fractions that involve variables. Okay? For example, 2x over x minus 1 plus 4x over x plus 5. You do the same thing, guys. Look. Pull those together. X minus 1 times x plus 5. This guy has the x minus 1. He's missing the x plus 5. Distribute the 2x, and you get 2x to the second plus 10x. This guy has the x plus 5. He's missing the x minus 1. Distribute. 4x times x is 4x squared. 4x times a negative 1 is a negative 4x. Then I'm going to add those together, and I get 6x to the second plus 6x all over x minus 1 times x plus 5, and nothing can cancel. Okay? Okay, I'm going to do one more thing with adding. I'm actually going to make it a subtraction. So if I have x plus 3 over x minus 4, subtract 3x over x plus 1. Okay? Same thing, guys. Look. Pull those together. X minus 4 times x plus 1. This guy has the x minus 4. He's missing the x plus 1. But I want you to look. This right here, x plus 3 times x plus 1, is very different than this. This one, you have to FOIL. This one, the x just sits there, and then you distribute the 3, and you get 3x plus 3. Which one's right? That one. So I have to put parentheses around the x plus 3 because it's a binomial. The x plus 1 is also a binomial. So I FOIL, and I get x to the second plus 4x plus 3. You have to be careful here. Look, this guy has the x plus 1. He's missing the x minus 4. If I distribute, I get a negative 3x to the second plus 12x. Distribute the negative. Be very, very, very careful with that. Add them up. Negative 2x to the second plus 16x minus 3 over x minus 4 times x plus 1, and you're done. As far as restrictions, I'd have x cannot be 4, x cannot be a negative 1. Okay, want to do one more thing. What is the difference? Okay, if f of x is x squared plus 1 and g of x is 2x, what is the difference between this and this? Okay. Oh, no, not that. And this. Okay. This, we haven't even done that. This means take your g of x, and wherever you see an x, take your f of x, pardon me, wherever you see an x, put in your g of x. So this would be f of 2x. So I'm going to go into that. It's going to look like this. Anyway, I'm not even going to do it. It's not going to be on your test. I haven't taught you how to do it. This means multiply. So this means f of x multiplied by g of x. So I would take my f of x. I'm going to multiply it by g of x. I could put the 2x there. That's kind of awkward, so I'm going to put it there. Then I would distribute 2x to the third plus 2x. That would be my answer. So you're not going to have a problem like that. An open circle means something very different than a closed circle. Okay? I want to do one more. People are out in the hallway. Okay, if f of x is x to the second plus 1, and we're finding the difference quotient, looks like this. Okay, f of x plus h, you need to go right here and put in x plus h. So that's going to be x plus h in parentheses squared plus 1. Minus f of x means minus parenthesis that guy all over h. Okay, x plus h squared is x to the second plus 2hx plus 1 minus x to the second minus 1 over h. You have to write the whole expression every time you write this down. Okay, x squared minus x squared cancel, 1 minus 1 cancel, so I have 2hx over h. Those h's are free to cancel because they're not added to anything, so your answer is 2x. Okay, sorry guys, that's all I have time for.